to other parts of his anatomy. Lisa, who was lonely, and who had been aware in any case of the magnetic effect of Jackson Cooper's presence for almost 3 years, fused to him immediately in response to the first slight signaling linger of a hand at her waist. So Jack did not have to be particularly active in the encounter that followed her accidental brush against him, as he was pouring their third glass of wine. And then a few minutes later, in what the realtor had referred to as the garden room, and nobody had ever referred to specifically since, when Jack eased them both deftly backward onto a daybed covered with blue and white ticking that Marnie had liked to lie on to watch the sunsets. Lisa's 2 immaculately manicured hands met his chest with keen and not inconsiderable gusto. Jack, while not engaged in this liaison with any more than instinctual enthusiasm, would nevertheless have proceeded with it except that, just as Lisa twisted to remove the last gossamer barrier to undiluted commitment, she emitted a modest, girlish giggle, and the sound punctured something in him. His senses rallied, or rather, didn't. Nature, having previously taken over his physical and mental functioning, suddenly and entirely deserted him. For the moment, this development was lost on Lisa. She turned to him again and advanced with neat, energetic intent. But eventually her breaths slowed and flattened. "Jack?" She scooted back and looked down at him. Jack, meeting her face, caught her eyes and saw there a woman, an ordinary woman, too human. He quit, lifting her hips from his groin, and sat up. "Sorry, honey," he said, pushing hair from his forehead and standing, dislodging her. Lisa, upright and naked, trembled lightly and said softly, "Don't worry, Jack. I'm not gay." Jack stared. "And Marnie probably always was," she added quickly, and she imagined sympathetically. "You don't turn people gay. They just are." Jack, speechless, fastened his trousers and went to retrieve the tennis dress. "Thanks," Lisa said when he handed it to her. But rather than put it back on, she held it with one hand, bunched against her breasts. "Maybe we should just go to my place," she suggested, "and relax. Have a drink and sit in the hot tub or something." She leaned toward him and raised 4 tender, encouraging fingers to his cheek. Jack, removing the fingers by the wrist, as if he were extricating a caterpillar from his salad, pulled back from the embrace. "I'm going to pass tonight," he said. And then he smiled to soften it, relieved to see Lisa at last make a move toward dressing. She looked small and vulnerable, bending to scoop up her underwear. "I'm sorry, honey. We'll do something later in the week. I'll call you." "Promise?" she said. "Promise," he said. She was still smoothing the tennis dress against her hips when he opened the door. Much later, quite a lot drunker, Jack took a postcard from the top drawer of the big oak desk in his study. On one side there was a picture of the sea, a mass of glorious turquoise. His eye, though, went to a red boat, barely sketched, in the top right-hand corner. It was an appealing picture, a reproduction of an oil by another of his neighbors, Julie Hepplewhite. She had a studio cum gallery setup on Mellon Walk, the sort of place Jack had noticed that the Hamptons, and especially Grove Shore, lately seemed full of, conspicuously picturesque and a bit strained. Although Julie's, the gallery on Mellon, was better than most, Jack thought. At least she could paint. But now, looking at her work, flicking the switch on an angle-poised lamp, no warmer aspect of Julie herself, came to him. She'd been a vanilla conquest, the counter of this evening's aborted fumble, an effortless progression from a late-night meander home after a party, as routine as lacing a shoe. The incident had been all but forgotten by both of them. At the gallery, if Jack wandered in behind the tourist crowd on an aimless Saturday to scan the walls non-committally and pick up a few postcards, Julie would smile and say, "Hey, Jack."